Hi, this is Stephen Greif.
These are your orders.
Destroy Blake.
Depend on it.
Welcome to Blake 7, The Way Back. I'm Dwayne.
I'm Philip.
I'm Todd.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Gary.
And on today's installment, we're going to be looking at Blake 7, Series 1, Episode 6, Seek, Locate, Destroy. And as you saw, we have a special guest with us today, Gary Russell. G'day.
Hello. How lovely to be here. I mean, I wish I was here. Unfortunately, I'm in rain-soaked Cardiff in the UK, not in glorious Australia.
Surrounded by lava lamps.
Surrounded by lava lamps and, a lot of lava lamps, which is perfect for Blake 7, really. Blake 7 always feels like it should be a sort of lava lamp program. I've got slightly obsessed with filling my house with lava lamps.
So we know you very well with your connection to Doctor Who, but what's your connection to Blake 7?
I'm just a fan. I mean, a huge fan. I came to Blake 7 quite late. So when I first got into Doctor Who fandom and I was writing articles and letters to fanzines and things, which is how I sort of started in fandom, being an annoying little twerp who used to write stupid letters to other fanzines. And I used to be quite derogatory about Blake 7. This would be 1979, 1980, and I was quite derogatory about Blake 7. Now, I had seen The Way Back. I saw that on the day of transmission. But my Monday nights were usually something else. So I saw The Way Back, and I saw a couple of other episodes. I did definitely see the one, the name of which has gone straight out of my head, the one with the old car and T.P. McKenna.
Bounty.
Thank you, Bounty, which is just awful. And I remember that was kind of what I based my entire dislike of Blake 7 on, was that one episode, because I thought it was terrible. And I used to, and then one day somebody in a fanzine wrote back to the letter I'd written, basically admonishing me for slagging off the show that they could tell from what I was saying that clearly I'd never watched. And that was Peter Angelides. And I got to know Peter Angelides and Peter Lovelady, who were doing Frontier Worlds, which was a Blake 7 Doctor Who fanzine, very well. And one day I was up in Manchester at Peter's house, and they said, right, we're going to make you watch Blake 7 now. And I was like, oh, God, must you? And so they forced me to watch Gambit. Now, I defy anyone in the world. If you don't love Gambit the moment you see Gambit, you're never going to love Blake 7. Gambit is the most brilliant piece of 50-minute television. And I sat there absolutely agape at Sylvia Coleridge getting away with being that MC, and men dressed as nuns, and the absolute outrageousness of John Leeson and Aubrey Woods. And just thinking, okay, you've sold me onto this. This is good. Then they made me watch The Keeper. Probably shouldn't have done that. And then we watched R1, and I sort of got Blake 7. And then they took me right back to the beginning. And over the next probably 6 months, I watched the whole of seasons 1, 2, and 3. So that when season 4 came out on telly, I was absolutely hooked. And I watched it by myself like a grown-up. Going, I've been taken off the training reins. I'm allowed to watch Blake 7 by myself now. And I was absolutely hooked on the whole series. I just think it's utterly brilliant. But of course, it meant that my first Travis was Brian Croucher and not Stephen Greif. And it was really weird. I because I'd seen those 3 stories at the end of season 2, to then go back to season 1 and see a completely different Travis in every way. I mean, just a completely different character. It was quite fun.
So, is your preference for Travis Brian Croucher because he was your first Travis, or would you still say Stephen
You
Greif?
know, I'm not faffing here. I don't have a preference because they are so completely different. I look at them and I go, only Stephen Greif could do season one of Blake Seven. I look at Weapon in season two and go, you can tell quite clearly that is written for Stephen Greif and not written for Brian Croucher. But by the time you get to Trial, that is there. I look at that and I think no, that isn't. Stephen Greif couldn't have done that. That needed to be Brian Croucher's version of Travis. And then for the rest of the season, the whole thing is geared for Brian Croucher. The Travis of season two is a significantly changed, different character, and it works. You know, you believe that he's become this far more insane, shouty, betrayed person who doesn't understand really. He's a soldier and he's dedicated, and then he's been put on trial, and he becomes a fugitive. And I do think that Brian Croucher does that very well. And I'm not. I think if Stephen Greif had stayed, we probably wouldn't have had that storyline for Travis. Not least because I think they probably wouldn't have killed him off. I think they would have made him stick around a bit longer and kept him as the main villain with Servalan in the background. But with
Well,
Brian Croucher, they went right. We need to push Servalan to the front and bring Travis much more into sort of the henchman role.
Okay, so of course, the Travis that we're going to be talking about in today's episode, Seek, Locate, Destroy, you would actually work with before. So let's not forget to mention that as we go through our discussion. But to start us off, Todd, could I get you to read us a synopsis of this episode, please?
Sure. This is from the VHS release of 1978. Callie is captured by the Federation when Blake and his crew destroy its communication center and steal the Cypher system. Old rival, Space Commander Travis, is ordered to seek, locate, and destroy Blake, and he plans to use Callie as bait.
So, Philip, have you got any facts and figures to give us about this episode?
I do indeed. Seek, Locate, Destroy by Terry Nation. Producer David Maloney. Directed by Veer Lorimer. This is his second story after doing Cygnus Alpha. Script editor Chris Boucher. Designer Robert Burke. Costume designs by Barbara Lane. And the music by Dudley Simpson. This was first screened on Monday the 6th of February 1978 at 7:15. Commissioned 2 years earlier, well 18 months earlier, November 1976. The location filming was done on the 5th to the 8th of December in 1977, and Gareth Thomas and Michael Keating missed rehearsals for the web to do that. The studio recording was on the 22nd and 23rd of December, so only just over a month before it was actually put out on TV. The audience was 10.9 million people, up 1.3 million from last time, and this is actually the highest rating episode of the whole season. The appreciation score was 68, and the chart position was 34, which is the second highest position for the season. It's only going to be beaten by the very final episode, which will have a higher chart position. That's a few of the facts and figures there.
Okay, I'll spoil it right now. I absolutely love this episode. But some time ago, Chris, you saw this for the very first time. So let's travel back in time and get your initial thoughts on Seek, Locate, Destroy.
Well, Chris, welcome back. Today you're going to watch Seek, Locate, Destroy. What
That's
are you
it.
expecting?
I am. Well, it makes me think of missiles, to be honest. So I'm thinking there's going to be some kind of space chase, some space fighting. I do know that Servalan is going to be in this episode. She's introduced for the first time. I do know that about it. But other than that, I've got no idea. So it makes me think of fighting in space. I'm expecting her to go on the trail of Blake and the team.
What do you know about Servalan?
That she wears outstanding costumes. That I think she wears like gowns and things like that in space, things that are kind of inappropriate. And that is really all I know. I don't know. I know she's part of the Federation, so she would be, and that she's after Blake. And I think she'll be the main protagonist for a while. I don't know if she is for the entire series. And that's really it. Yeah. And that she's played by Jacqueline Pearce.
So, what are you hoping for from this episode?
Well, a bit of action, a bit of action, because that's what the title kind of gives me, that there's going to be a bit of action, maybe a bit more storyline from at least one of the characters that we haven't heard from yet. That thief, I can't remember his name because I don't think he's really been in it too much.
Villa.
Villa, him. Yeah, I do want to know a bit more about him because he seems to be scared of everything and he doesn't fight or do anything. So I'm like, what's your point? What's he there for? I haven't seen that yet, so I wouldn't mind finding out a bit more about him. I'd like to be a bit more about Jenna as well because I really quite like her a lot. I think she'd probably be after Avon. After Avon, I think she'd probably be one of my favorite characters as well. Yeah, so I want to know a bit more about her.
Excellent. Well, listen, go and watch it, and we'll talk to you after you've seen the episode.
Great. All right. See you then.
Well, you've just finished watching Seek, Locate, Destroy. What did you think?
Yep. It was a good episode. Different tone again. Like the last one, it reminded me of a horror story. This one reminded me more of a sci-fi story, really. It had, the military space commandment. It was good to finally see a bit more of Villa at the start because he finally he went down and actually did something on the planet and got transported there. So I got more of an understanding of what his role is in the show because previously he'd just been in the background. I didn't really know much about him. So that was good. I'm a bit confused because sometimes he's a coward and he doesn't want to do stuff, and then other times he ran in and tried to stop that guy from pressing the buzzer, and then it cut to the guard on the floor. So I'm assuming he beat him up. It wasn't edited that well. I did like the transport was different this time, slightly different. We actually saw it from the perspective of the person being transported rather than from the person at the desk transporting them. I thought that was quite good. I like that. The Serverland was finally in it.
Yes, so finally we see the Federation. What did you think? First time Silverland, what did you think?
Well, I thought the spaceship was impressive. I thought it reminded me of the Wheel in Space, but I thought that was very impressive. I thought that looked
Space
really,
Command
really good.
is really impressive.
Yeah, it was. For a second, I thought, have I got the special effects on? Have I switched watching it with the new special effects? I'm like, no, I'm sure I don't. That's brilliant. Yeah, she was good. She was good. I liked her ice cold tone. There was an authority to her almost, and a strength to her. But when Travis came in, the strength kind of left, and she seemed a little bit more nervous around him than the other people.
So, did you enjoy the episode?
I did. It was a different tone to the web, but yes, I did enjoy it, especially because I got more of a backstory, and it refreshed my mind. So yeah, I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Any other comments you want to make about the show?
No, not at all. No, looking forward to watching the next one and getting a bit more.
Great. So next story is called Mission to Destiny. So we'll talk to you before that one.
Great. All right. Talk to you then. See you later. Bye.
So, Chris, that was your thoughts then. I guess you've watched again to catch up for our podcast today.
Yep.
Has your views changed?
I can't remember what my views were back then. I can't remember what I said.
You just watched them, Chris.
No. I can't, yeah, but but that was what was that last year, January, I think, or February. But no, rewatching it now, I really enjoyed it again. If I enjoyed it last time, I'm pretty sure I did. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, really good episode.
So in this episode, we've got four main locations. We've got the planet Kentaro, which when I was taking my notes, I always spelled it with a K, and then I see that it's spelled with a C. And we have scenes on the Liberator. We've got scenes inside the communications hub, and we've got the first scenes on Space Command, which are fabulous throughout this. So we start off on Kentaro with our beautiful little security robot that's keeping the place extremely secure.
Team remote surveillance is now in operation.
Todd, give us your thoughts on the locations and the first sightings of that planet Kentaro that was mentioned 2 episodes ago, because we had the web in between, of course.
Well, it's interesting because it's like you see that robot, and I swear that robot is from something else, but I'm sure it's probably not. And then you've got your lovely factory locations that I feel like have been in Doctor Who or something very similar. And for me, it's sort of like when watching it, because as you know, I came to Blake Seven in later seasons. It's sort of like, oh yes, we're invading another one of these factory locations. But I really love it. Like, I mean, I love this episode. It's my favorite so far.
Yes, the robot does come back. I was flicking forward to Project Avalon, and it's back in that. I'm not sure if it's in any other episodes as well, but I think I had that same impression, that I thought I'd seen it somewhere in Doctor Who, and it was, I think it's the head of the robot and the way it flashes. It reminds me of that computer in the Armageddon Factor, just the similar kind of design. So it was around similar time as well. So yeah,
it's also used a lot. All the original, when they launched the show back in 77, all the press publicity photographs, that first wave of photos, all feature the robot. It's Jenna and Blake and Villa, I think, and that robot taken at the back of the Langham Hotel in London. So they were sort of all the publicity, all the photograph stuff, because let's face it, there actually isn't a great deal of photo material for Blake 7 compared to something like Doctor Who. But that robot features very, very heavily in all the season 1 photography. It was you kind of think, oh, they were going to be pushing this, as a main thing. And yeah, it appears in 1 episode of season 1 and 2 episodes rather of season 1, and that's it. It's over and done with.
It reminds me of the robot from the Sontaran experiment in Doctor Who.
It moves in the same way.
But I love the fact that it doesn't actually have fire or something as well, as I recall.
In Project Avalon, it shoots fire out. Yeah.
Oh, use fire.
It does in this episode too.
It does in this episode. Yeah. But I had the same reaction to you guys. It reminded me. I thought it looked like a robot from a 50s or 60s B-grade sci-fi movie. To be honest, that's what it reminded me of.
The director Via Lorme hated it with a passion. Terry Nation keeps thinking, I'm going to create something better than the Daleks. And I think this was his hope, to create something again better than the Daleks.
Oh yes, well done.
It was supposed to be all remote controlled. It had to be pulled along on fishing wire. It just totally failed. The thing I love about this episode, though, is just in terms of, if you're not sure where you are, it's lovely to have an announcement across the base, actually announcing the name of the planet, which I'm sure every time you make an announcement in a certain place, you always announce the planet you're on. But aside from that, I think the look of the place, the location work is great. To me, having Michael Keating getting a proper star turn, because this is the most he's actually been used, I think, in any show up to now, and you start to see how gifted he is and talented he is. Another thing I just mentioned, I just love their costumes.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, they seem to have all these different coloured costumes, and I can't remember that from, later on. Like, they've all got their own colours, and they're all the same.
Yeah, and once again, I think the costume designer who we called out last week for her work has really gone above and beyond with her costumes this time. But she's got a Robin Hood feel to it. I mean, Terry Nation described a bit that it was Robin Hood, and you look at the color scheme. So you've got Villa's dressed in scarlet, like Will Scarlet, who was the thief and the pocket thief in Robin Hood. You've got Blake and Callie are both in the greens. So they're the Robin Hood characters. You've got Gan, the big friendly giant, in brown, like Friar Tuck. All they really did was put poor Darrow in black, and it would have been perfect.
Jenna was in pink as Maid Marian.
Jenna she doesn't get a costume. She doesn't get a base costume. But it's interesting that they have this uniform, which they'll use a few times this season, and then they discard next. But I actually think having a planet-based uniform was a good idea.
I do think that the fact that they are all these variety of colours isn't very sensible if you're trying to infiltrate lots of secret bases and things like that, and you're walking around in pink and bright red, and I can see why for season 2 June Hudson sort of threw all of that out and went much more into subdued, muted colours, and much more, with the exception of Blake, she brings everyone's silhouette right down so they are figures rather than sort of voluminous, silly clothing that would get caught on security wires and things like that.
I loved the fact that Villa got to do some very high tech work on that security system at the start, and then when it went through, the camera pans down and it's a rusty old gate that creaks open. That cracked me up. I thought that was hilarious. But it was just that is the charm of Blake Seven that I love. You know, what was that place called? Was it Fulham Gasworks,
Fulham
where it
Gasworks.
was? So, and this is a communication center that looks like a gasworks. So, you know, I was driving down the street and there was just one pole with mobile phone dishes on it. In Blake Seven, you need a whole planet for that kind of thing. So very, very cool stuff.
The special effects team do a great job in actually blowing up Michael Keating, because in that flash at the beginning, they actually they didn't tell him to step away what was going to happen, and so it actually exploded in his face, and he got lots of stuff in his eye, and that just he kept acting on as a trooper, but he actually lots of stuff went into his eye with that first explosion, and that's when they started to learn, don't trust the special effects crew.
I like this episode because it features Villa. So Villa is always my favourite character, and I love the fact that this is his first episode where he gets to shine, because we get the opportunity to see how very good he is at his job. For all his faffing and cowardness and all of that, actually give him a lock to open, give him something to break into, and he's brilliant at it.
Anybody authorised to go through the gate has a physio-psycho pattern registered in the central computer. Hold this. When he wants to go through, this scans him and feeds the reading back to the computer. All you've got to do is intercept the feedback from the computer. Now you stand in front and I'll press the scan button. Retrieval system, no record. Refusal signal, now.
Nice going.
Any very talented person could have done it. Come on.
And he succeeds. And I think it's really nice that he gets something to do after 5 episodes of really not doing very much.
And he gets that delicious line.
Villa!
Has it gone?
How did you get in there?
There isn't a lock I can't open, if I'm scared enough.
You scared?
Like, it just sums him up brilliantly, you know. They put the
And
pressure on him.
Yeah. And how quick he disappeared. I thought it showed how good a thief he is as well. Like, he must be a really good cat burglar to be able to do that and move on his feet. So, yeah.
You also have that very Avengers sort of line when he's approaching the 2 guards.
Hello there. How are you? Excuse me wandering about your premises, but I wonder if you can help me. I'm an escaped prisoner. I was a thief, but recently I've become interested in sabotage. In a small way, you understand, nothing too ambitious. I hate vulgarity, don't you? Anyway, I've come to blow something up. What do you think will be most suitable?
That whole Avengers-style conversation, of course, Terry Nation wrote for the Avengers. You can really feel him writing those sort of lines for Steed, now for Villa.
Now, it's not long after this that Blake and Villa get inside the communications hub, but it's interspersed with shots from the Liberator, scenes from, and we get our first scenes of Space Command as well. So I want to talk about that for a minute. But before we do, we're going to start getting into guest cast. So perhaps now is as good a time as any as inserting our segment that we like to call Who's on Who? I'm going to count Jackie Pierce as, because she's a regular, semi-regular cast member, but because it's her first time, I'll count her as well. So she's one. Okay. How many others? Boys, give us a number.
Well, I'm going with 3.
3?
I'm going 3 as well.
Well, I had 4. I had 4, including her.
I'm going to go 4.
Ooh.
4?
4.
Any advance on 4?
Ooh, is it more than 4?
There are actually 5 actors in this episode that are not regular cast who have appeared in Doctor Who. Of course, I said Jacqueline Pearce. She was, of course, in the 2 Doctors. Peter Craze. He plays Prell. I think he's the guy that's getting his hands up in the guarded by Callie. He was in the Space Museum, the War Games, and the other one, boys,
Nightmare in Eden.
Okay, of course, we know Peter Miles. He's an obvious one. We know he was in the Silurians. And was he in an earlier episode, Peter Miles? Or is this the first time we've seen Ron
Silurians,
Tate?
Revelations, Dinosaurs, and Genesis.
As far as Blake 7 goes, we haven't seen him before.
No, he
in
comes
Blake
back
7
later.
yet, have we?
He does come back.
Another
Yeah,
spoiler.
that's right.
But yeah.
Okay. All
He's in
right.
that one.
The fella that was with him, is it Senator Burkle?
Yep.
That's John Bryans, and he
John
has
Bryans.
been in Doctor Who as well in one episode. Creature from the Pit.
Yep.
He was one of the hairy fellas. Or
He's
he was the
the
lead hairy fella.
He was, yes.
Yep. And there's one of the guards is called Escon, and that was played by Ian Cullen. So we know where he was from, do we?
The Aztecs and
The
Zedgar.
Aztecs. Yeah.
Ah.
There you
He
go.
was the one I missed.
So there's always more than you think in most cases. So that's fascinating
Ian
stuff.
Cullen was a late replacement because the person they'd hired couldn't remember his lines. And they sacked him and brought Ian Cullen in.
Is that right? It was a line thing. I knew he was replacing someone, but wow.
Yeah, couldn't learn his lines. They sacked him.
And of course, Peter
makes
Craze
sense.
was Michael Craze's brother,
Yes, correct.
who played Ben, yeah.
Because Ian Cullen was quite a big actor to come in and do a very small part. That would make sense. He was probably doing a favour to Via Lorimer at the last minute then.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, so let's go into Space Command for the first time. Of course, we have the little chat between Ron Tain and Burkle talking about Servalan and Travis and what's going on there. But then we meet Servalan for the first time. Chris, give me your first impressions of Servalan.
She reminded me of, those 80s and 90s sort of iconic bitches from the soaps, like
Pat the Rat.
I didn't think of her, but yeah, just the way she held she holds your eye, and she just reminded me of, like, from Dynasty. What was Joan Collins, Julie Sugarbaker from Designing Women, those kind of characters. That's what she kind of reminded me of, those kind of strong-willed. We call them bitches, but they're not. I wouldn't call them they're bitches. They're just strong-willed, but that's what she reminded me of anyway. Yeah.
And Todd, you didn't watch Blake 7 sequentially either, so do you remember seeing Servalan for the first time?
I can't remember. I probably would have seen her in season 4, but then seeing her back here, I just kind of, even then, it reminds me of Mark Armand from Soft Cell. I always think of that look. Why are you laughing, Gary? But that's what I think. It's the short hair and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what I think. And I think it's interesting that it's 18 minutes in. It's almost a third of the way through this episode that we suddenly get Space Command and that model. I think it's a very interesting model when you look at it, like these little wires and things like that. And I did find it intriguing that suddenly we're in Space Command rather than, like, in the first episode, which is very much on Earth with various people from the Federation there. And so I expected some of those people probably from the first episode to reappear here, but we've got, different people representing the Federation. Where's Morag and the guy from Revenge of the Cybermen, that sort of thing. But straight away, Jacqueline Pearce just has a presence and an aura that you are just drawn to in those first scenes with the other two. I think she's wonderful.
You mentioned Morag, and I keep thinking, Terry, what were you thinking coming up with that name? Gary, you got to know Jackie through Big Finish a little, did you?
I knew her long before we did Big Finish. Yeah, no, I've known Jackie for quite a long time. Yes.
Yeah.
She's brilliant.
How is she in comparison to her character?
She's Servalan. The thing I think the most interesting thing, Jackie Pearce has a delivery of her lines. Everything is got a little pause in it, and she's talking down to you the whole time, don't you think? A bit sort of Margaret Thatcherish.
You may tell the President that I am appointing a space commander to take absolute control of this matter. He will be exclusively concerned to seek, locate, and destroy Blake.
Oh. Jacqueline Pearce talked like that in real life, except she was never talking down to you. She was usually laughing. But she had that delivery where there were just those nice little pauses. And you'd sit there and go, yeah, I can see why you're Servalan. She created that character, not just from the Mark Almond look, but also her vocal delivery. When you think that was originally written for a man, who I think would have just said all those lines. But when she's dealing with Burkle and Rontaine, and she's so laid back about the whole thing, and she's so talking to them a bit like they're naughty schoolboys. And you think, yeah, that's why Servalan works. It is her performance that makes the character work. Because in the hands of a lesser actor or actress, that would have been a really dull, pompous part. Because the dialogue itself in this episode isn't that great. It's fairly mundane dialogue, she has to say. But she imbues it with so much character that you can't help fall in love with her. I mean, she is the villain that you end up wanting to be in love with and win. You know, she's how could you ever want to hate Servalan? She's so brilliant.
Totally agree.
Fantastic costumes.
And the subtext that with all that she says, you never, she's got her own agenda and there's so much going on there, so many layers there. This is maybe a silly question. When did they change the character to a woman? Was that her audition or was that earlier or what?
It was, she had something to do with it. I think already Maloney was thinking that the villains are all male top heavy. And so he started looking for women. And then I think when in deciding on Jacqueline Pearce went, yes, this is the way we need to go, and said to Terry Nation, write this as a woman. And Terry Nation, I imagine being Terry Nation, probably went, well, no, I'm not changing the dialogue. You don't need to. Women can deliver lines exactly the same as men with no problem, which I think is quite not necessarily always the right way, but I think in the case of Servalan was probably the right attitude to take, which was leave her written as a man and let the actress play with it and turn it into her own character, which is what Jacqueline did in that episode. And then subsequently, of course, everyone, you can imagine Boucher sitting down with a typewriter going, oh God, I've got to make this work for a woman now. But yeah, the script didn't change greatly once they knew they'd cast Jacqueline Pearce. She is given the lines, if you like, of a man, and just makes it all work. And you were talking about the subtext there, Todd, and I think one of the loveliest things that is in this episode is her relationship with Ray, her number one. And clearly they have been shagging. I mean, she is clearly, he's bonked his way into being her secretary, and yet she still plays those marvelous power politics with him, and he is. When she shuts him down at one point, and he goes back into yes, Supreme Commander and everything, and you think, yeah, she's a woman who has clearly, she knows what she's capable of, and has no compunction about using her femininity to rise to the top. And you get all of this in her first scene. You get all of that stuff with Ray, and then straight after you get all the stuff with Bronte and Burkle, and it's just like, yeah, everything you need to know about Servalan and how she's got to the position she's in is all in those first couple of scenes, and it's entirely down to Jacqueline. It's entirely down to she plays certain lines,
and that scene is a wonderful scene. I'm used to her seeing her in season 3 and 4, so when I'm watch this for the first time, it was like, oh wow, she's this is how she is, and even before Travis walks in, who I never obviously knew at that time, just seeing that and seeing it again, watching it again, like just how great those scenes are. Philip?
I mean, I came in the first time with season 3, so Servalan to me was a bit more, I mean, I loved her, but she was a bit more one note, a bit camper. And so it's interesting going back and seeing Jacqueline perform. And of course, originally the costume was supposed to be a safari suit, a helmet. And she just went and said, well, why, you should just be hiring a man if you want me to wear that. And so she went to the costume designer and said, I want to be beautiful. I want a dress flowing. And I think it's very Princess Leia-ish in some ways because Star Wars hadn't quite come out yet in England. It was out in America, but all the scenes and things that we knew what Princess Leia looked like, and I think she wanted that sort of look. But the emotional change that she goes through in those scenes is just astounding. So she's just very matter of fact, very political with Ron Tane and Knight, I was going to say, who he was. And they said that she's done so romantic with Ray and the way she plays with his hair and his ear, but then gets really angry with him. Her anger when her teasing, make Travis wait for me, and then her anger when he's storming through. But by the time he's walked in the room, she just has full composure again, which is I was letting you in, so that's fine. So just the way she controls the character and herself is the most stunning performance, and just I mean it's the best she's. And it was supposed to be a one-off. I can understand why when they filmed this they went, we have to bring her back.
And when she was dealing with the threat of mutiny as well, you could kind of sense she was like giving that death stare to that guy, and he was just crumbling underneath her. She was just so powerful. So, and I think you guys have said it very well. So wonderful, wonderful villain that we've got there in Servalan. Okay, so since this is the first appearance of Jacqueline Pearce as Servalan in Blake 7, she's a bit of a focus guest for this week. And Chris, do you have a bit of info for us you'd like to share?
I did, yes. All right. So Jacqueline Pearce was one of those rare performers who didn't just play a role, she redefined a space around her. Born in Surrey in 1943, she trained at RADA and the Actors Studio, she moved through British film and television with a presence that was sharp, elegant, and impossible to ignore. She first stepped in the spotlight through Hammer Horror, The Plague of the Zombies and the Reptile, films that let her explore intensity, vulnerability, and danger in equal measure. Television followed, Danger Man, The Avengers, Doctor Who, Callan, each appearance adding another facet to her craft. And then came Blake 7's Servalan. The role that would make her a legend wasn't meant to last, like we've mentioned. She was written for a single episode, a brief antagonist, but Jacqueline walked onto the screen with such charisma, poise, and power that the producers expanded the character into a series regular. Fans responded instantly. Servalan became the show's magnetic centre of gravity, glamorous, ruthless, and unforgettable. Her career stretched far beyond far beyond that. Theatre with Harold Pinter and Tom Stoppard, film roles, and she later returned to Doctor Who in Big Finish as Cardinal Olistra in the War Doctor audio dramas. Off screen, she spoke openly about her struggles with depression and later found deep purpose volunteering at a monkey sanctuary in South Africa, a chapter she described as transformative. She returned to the UK in 2015, and then in 2018 she passed away at 74. But her legacy, fierce, stylish, and utterly singular, still burns bright in the world she helped shape.
What a fantastic summary. Thanks, Chris. And yes, she is amazing as Olistra in The War Doctor against John Hurt. They were some of the best. Absolutely.
She does cover audios too, which are really spectacular. And I should have looked up. There's one particularly in the Liberator Chronicles, which is a two-hander, her and I forget who it is.
Yes,
and it is just her at her manipulative. Well, she just starts off sweet and beautiful, and by the end, she's destroyed so many lives and just done it with a smile. I will just point out too that we keep calling her Servalan. She's actually not named on screen at all in the whole first season. She's only a space commander. Supreme Commander.
Supreme Commander,
She hasn't actually get named on screen until season B or 2, depending on how you view Blake 7. But yeah, she doesn't get named on screen this entire season.
So she's not credited.
She's credited as Servalan.
Oh, it is. She's credited as
But she's not named. She's only ever called Supreme Commander. She's always given her military title because it's important to know she's a military leader. She's not a politician. She's actually a military leader because she's a Supreme Commander and she's in charge of the military. But yes, she's not actually named Servalan until season 2.
Wow.
Shortly after this scene, we have Travis entering the scene for the first time. And we get some, we've already had a bit of backstory already in some of the dialogue that's happened. But sort of backstory that's filling in parts that were there in the first episode, filling them out even more. So I thought that was fascinating too, getting some of that backstory.
Can I say via Lorimer's direction in terms of you just get the leather and the bottom shot. For Travis, it's the slow reveal of before you get his face, because you have him walking in. You've got a march theme for him. You have the slow pan on his back. You've got Jacqueline's reactions. It's not till a minute or so into the scene you get the first time you actually go to his face, and so you've got the voice. You've got so much revealed first. It's Terry Nation was a big James Bond fan as well, and spy thriller fan, and you can kind of feel that James Bond influence coming in to both Servalan and Travis. The patch on the eye, Servalan's the Blowfield character, the soft, gentle, stroking a cat, but you cross and you're dead. Travis is more the henchman with the special abilities. But the way they play off each other is really powerful, and that scene, they just are so good with each other that it's and the direction just slowly reveals bit by bit what's going on. So, yeah, credit to V. Lorimer for how he's actually making each scene unpack itself.
I had to laugh because it's like halfway through that Travis's bum in leather is revealed. I mean, what a shot.
I did too.
I was just there going, okay, because I didn't really know the character. So I was going, okay, this is how he's going to be like the male sort of sex object, if I can put it that way. But what I really like is the fact that I just thought, oh, he's just going to be a henchman to Servalan. But throughout the episode, he's actually got a plan and he's methodical and he's actually not an idiot. And so I'm used to that later on stuff where she just have henchman of the week. Watching this for the first time and rewatching it here, it was just struck me at how intelligent and what a good adversary he is for Blake. And I liked all of them, him telling the story about Blake and then intercutting back with Blake telling the story about his memories coming back about Travis. I thought all that was well done too.
I mean, the nice thing really is that, as Philip said earlier, Servalan was meant to be a one-off for this story, and Travis is the main villain of Blake 7, and that's what this is setting up. And the fact that he's kind of then linked permanently into Servalan, with one or two odd exceptions, in all his subsequent stories, sort of dilutes him a little bit, I think, in season 1. You do think that he might have been a lot more successful, or when he fails, it would have been built up a lot better if Servalan wasn't there and every single time it went wrong, and Servalan wasn't there in every sort of operation he was doing, because he is set up to be the absolute main villain of the series, and he's neutered really by having someone as powerful as Servalan controlling him for the rest of the series.
Yeah, and as much as he's set up to be the villain of the series, the way Stephen Greif plays him is he's the hero. Because Travis really believes he's the hero of the show. He's the one bringing justice. He fully believes in everything he's doing. Blake is the terrorist. Blake is the evil one. Blake has emasculated him, blown off his face, taken off his hand. It's sort of a Javert comparison, like Les Miserables, where you got Javert and Jean Valjean, who's actually the hero. And Javert believes he's the hero. Travis fully believes he's the hero of this story.
And I think that's wonderful. I think that's some of the best writing when our villain believes that they're the hero. I think you see that in other series as well.
Now, Gary, part of the reason you're with us today is particularly for this episode, is because you novelized this episode and the previous one, The Web, and we're going to have a separate discussion with you just on the novel itself. But just give us a taste. What was it like fleshing out some of those characters? Because I did mention we got some backstory that goes way back to episode 1 in this one. How was that writing the novels, fleshing them out even more?
It was fun. I was given a fairly long piece of rope, which was quite nice. I was also given all the earliest possible drafts we could find of the 2 episodes. And as I'll discuss when we talk about the book later, this included Travis's first name. One of the things that I was able to take from those early drafts is there's a version of Seek, Locate, Destroy that isn't even this story at all. It's a completely different story. And I was able to take elements from that other script and incorporate them into the backstory of this episode as well. And so that was quite fun. I got to sort of play with people quite a lot and expand them. And I think that's the job of the novelist, is to expand stuff.
Could I ask if you're a fan of the new special effects, or are you a purist and you like to stick with the original?
I'm a very boring purist. I haven't watched the new special effects at all. I don't on the Doctor Who releases. I don't on the Blake Seven releases. I'm sure they're all brilliant, but I don't get myself involved with them. I like to watch it. I like it to be restored. I like to see the best possible quality prints. I love Blu-ray anyway, but I'm very happy to watch, the Liberator as a piece of 2D animation flying towards a planet and an explosion that, you can see the fuse going off and it's not quite in the same place that the spaceship was. For me, that's the charm of 1970s television, and I don't want to try and pretend it was made in 2025.
I'm kind of the opposite. I like the special effects. I love it. I think there's still plenty of charm in there, just with the Fulham Gasworks and that location.
Yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
smacks to me of late 1970s more than anything else. So yeah, I love the new special effects.
Can I say
But I'm a big fan of the animations too, and a lot of people don't like Doctor Who animations either. So
the cost
But I think
sometimes
that's different because the animations are the whole thing is completely new. Whereas when you're replacing, I'm not saying that they shouldn't do this because lots of people do love them. It's just my personal thing is I'd rather watch the originals. And at least you're not replacing it. You're not doing like they did with Star Trek and suddenly going this, or Star Wars as well. This is the only version that's available has got the new updated effects. They're an option, which is how it should be. But it just doesn't do it for me. But with the animations on Doctor Who, that's different because you're replacing something that simply doesn't exist. So you're not. It's not an alternative in that sense. It's just a different interpretation of the entire 25-minute episodes. And obviously they don't have to do that with Blake because luckily nothing of Blake is missing.
yes.
I would just say you have to be careful you don't lose the director's vision in the new effects. So generally speaking, I watched both again just to watch them up. I actually think the Space Command stuff in the original stuff still holds up perfectly well and didn't need to be changed. And sometimes it's a bit too glossy. I mean, it's lovely having the Space Command with lots of little ships buzzing all around it and that sort of Deep Space Nine look, but you don't need it. But where you lose the director's vision is that with the new effects, you've got the beautiful opening shot of the planet Kentaro and the Liberator in orbit around it. Beautiful shot. But you go back and watch the original actually has the planet coming out of the Blake 7 titles. And Via Lorimer obviously designed the Blake 7 titles, Seek, Locate, Destroy, and this huge planet comes up, and through the titles, the title fades into the planet. And that was a director's choice to start the show off in a really striking way, and the new effects have taken that away. So you've always got to be careful you don't lose director's vision by updating the effects.
I agree with you, except I would venture to suggest that wasn't Via Lorimer's vision. It would be whoever did the special effects in 1977-78's vision, because the director very rarely had much to do with the Ian Scoones's effect shots, because they were just like delivered and went, there you are, that's your special effects done for this season. That wasn't the production team weren't that heavily involved in the effects work back in the 70s on shows like that. That would have been handed over lock, stock and barrel, and then it would have been delivered to them, which is why you'll often find directors going, I got this effects work and it's just not what I wanted at all, because they weren't that heavily involved at all. The effects people were off doing their stuff, usually at a completely separate time to when the rest of the episode was being made. So I think, it was far more likely an Ian Scoones decision to have the planet coming out of the title sequence than it would have been a Via Lorimer. I could be wrong.
Attention, please. This is Planet Kentaro Communications Base Control.
Let's go back down to Kentaro, and we're inside the communication hub now. Villa and Blake. I really enjoyed this episode, how everyone seemed to have something to do. Oftentimes there's someone standing around not really doing anything, but this time it was different. Did you feel that, Todd?
Well, everybody had their job, but of course, Jenna doesn't get to go down. She's just learning how to operate the teleport, and I think it's
Important job, though.
True, but it's just a small sequence. I think she's used a lot less. Gan just has his like, I need to break open the or whatever he was doing to stop the break open the what was it
Cipher. The
yeah
cipher.
Pull out the
cipher.
cipher machine.
And
Yeah.
that was it. I mean, obviously Kelly was, and then he was in between with Kelly guarding the people in the scientists in the other room. We do all have our moments, but I did think that Gan was used a lot less, perhaps, than the others generally. Yeah, but it was good that nobody was really missing per se. I do think it is utterly and totally hilarious that we all been back up to the ship and we're all discussing things, and then 2 minutes later or 3 minutes later, Blake has to mention Callie, and it's like, oh, where's Callie? I'm just there going, what the hell? Like, she hasn't been up with us. Where the bloody hell is she?
Yeah, and really, Jenna, who's watching them come up to not notice, and Gan, who's supposed to be looking after her to not notice. I mean, it wouldn't have been hard to have Jenna rush to this, hit the teleport and run to the flight deck to get the ship going so that she didn't see who wasn't there. They could have actually made that work better than they actually tried, I think.
Your thoughts on those scenes down there, Gary?
I'm with Todd on this. I think it's a valiant attempt by Terry Nation to get all 6 members of the crew involved in doing something. It is a little bit sort of shoehorned in. I always feel sorry for Jenna. I mean, she really deserved a lot more than just being on teleporter duty for, her entire time on the show. I sort of I can't think how I do it in the novel. I have a feeling in the novel I have them being attacked or something happened to Liberator, and therefore there's a lot going on, which is why no one notices that Callie isn't there for a beat. But it is a bit weird that nobody notices. There isn't a huge amount of room in that teleport room. If somebody isn't there, you would notice very quickly because everyone's got room to breathe. So it is a bit weird that they take a while to suddenly spot that Callie's missing.
I think essentially the reason why they're undone is because a guard wakes up from being knocked out by a lunchbox and runs off and hits the alarm. It's interesting that, and I guess it is the type of storytelling which is really the best thing they should have just gone and done is just gone and shot everyone so they're all dead because they're about to blow them up anyway. But heroes are allowed to blow people up, but they're not allowed to shoot people. So even the Fourth Doctor's allowed to put a bomb inside Van de Graaff's pocket and him go off and blow himself up. That's okay. You just can't shoot someone. But they're very effective. They're acting like terrorists. They are going to kill everyone anyway with bombs, but they can't shoot them. Is actually their downfall and why Callie gets caught. So it's into the rules they have to play by in 70s science fiction. In some ways, makes the story not work as well, but actually keeps them as being heroes. Because I guess if they walked in and shot everyone, you wouldn't like them as much.
So back on the Liberator, Blake finds out that Travis is there, and he says, "I'm sure I killed him." So we find out more about the events that led to Blake's original arrest, and that it was totally involved with Travis. Yeah, lots more action down on the communication hub, where they're beginning to torture Callie as well. So that was pretty heavy as well for those 10 million viewers watching that. That's where we get Travis wanting to trick Blake into returning by using that cipher machine. There are a lot of different techie things said throughout this episode too, because they're starting to realize that Blake and the team have got teleportation as well, because they appear right in front of the guards. So this is being established there that's that. And they talk about a molecular shift detector as well. And Travis talks about one reliable flaw that Blake has, and that's his loyalty. So he's playing on that too. Goes back to rescue Callie. So that final sequence, fellas, I'll leave it open to you. Jump in and let us know what you thought of the final sequence, how that all played out.
I'll just jump in about the molecular shift detector, the MSD. One of the things I read in preparation was Trevor Hoyle's novelization of this story, as well as Gary's. And one of the things about reading Trevor's is because he was using early scripts, and so you get to see some of the changes that were made. And originally, Terry Nation put in that it wasn't an MSD they'd invented, but a blocking screen to stop Blake from teleporting out. and Chris Boucher, I think, rightly made the decision that you don't want a device that can stop people teleporting in or out. It's going to be a disaster for the story later on. And that bit got changed to the MSD, which is one of those interesting changes that got made by Chris Boucher, and a right one. But also, I just want to comment on V. Lomi's direction, because you just talk about the scenes. The scene of Travis and Blake talking about the past and the fade backwards and forwards is once again V. Lomi doing some really lovely character work. I think last time we talked about V. Lomi directing last time, I bagged him out for his action. Said he was amazing and brilliant with character work, his beautiful filming, and his beautiful shots of Callie with the guards and the camera going down and coming back up again, and Callie's through the shoulder. He does character work brilliantly. But you've got these action scenes like Villa chasing the guard, and then some of the guards on the ground. Like, what the heck happened there? Has Villa killed him? Like, when it comes to those action scenes, once again, Villa just shows he struggles with it. And I talked about last time, he just does set pieces, and a lot of that in that room with Travis was this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot, preparation, this shot. Because I just don't think he does action very well. But the character stuff with Callie and Travis and Blake and Travis before it goes to the gun stuff, I think is very powerful.
It's interesting you talk about those action sequences, because then we have those fight sequences with Callie and all of that stuff in the other room, and some of that's a bit laughable, I'm sorry to say.
No, I agree. Now it makes sense. I remember you saying that about him. And now, all the fight scenes in this one were quite funny. Callie's fight scene made me laugh because she sort of stops and waits for the other actor to turn around and face her, and she's sort of just like, most people would have just hit him on the back of the head and knocked him over, but she sort of stands there waiting for him. So you're right there. But and his character shots were very, very good. Yeah,
I think you can tell. With VLR, people often say with old 70s and 80s TV, when it's the multi-camera stuff in a studio, you can spot the directors who are really good on film stuff and in location, but they all fall a little bit undone once they get into a studio and they're up in a gallery and they can't direct. And I always think with VLR, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
His stuff in a studio is usually really quite good. And he's a lousy film director because he can't seem to frame shots, and he decides to do stuff in long shot that really should be a conversation in close up and things like that. But I think this is because I don't know much about Villarama, but my guess would be he's probably an old theatre director, which is why he's very good on dialogue stuff and as you say, the character stuff, and probably less good on action and movement, because as a theatre director, you're used to doing everything within a confined space and making the audience look at the people who are talking. And a experienced film director knows how to make everything, work, and your eyes should be darting all over the screen, working out what's important at that particular moment. And I think that's both therefore Villarama's strength and weakness, is he is very, very good on character stuff, but that's not always a good idea in a 50-minute guns and bows and arrows action show.
And then the scene in the Space Command is beautifully blocked for stage. How Jacqueline Pearce walks around the table behind the other politicians. She leads Ray over to the couch, sitting on the couch. She stands up, she moves back. It's all blocked like a piece of theatre, that entire room. And it's big enough to do. Some of the other sets are a bit cramped. I think there's less opportunity. But as I said, some of the shots he does with Callie, with the prisoners, is beautiful film work. But once again, that's all done in the studio, which is where he's really excelling.
You were talking earlier about the teleport. And I think one of the sorry, Chris, I'll try not to do too many spoilers here, but one of the nice things about Blake 7 is teleport remains something that only the Liberator has. And the Federation and the administration are chasing the whole time to try and get this technology. They know the technology exists in theory, but the fact that Liberator has it is the main thrust of why they want to sort of, yes, they want to shut Blake down and kill him off. But as the series goes on, it's a lot more about Servalan saying, I want the ship. I need that ship because it's got all this fantastic technology.
Now!
And I always think it's really good that every time they use the teleporter, everyone goes, oh, wow, we know what teleportation is. But my God, you've actually got it. That's fantastic. And that never changes. Nobody miraculous, no other species, no other civilization miraculously has teleportation. It is exclusive to the Liberator until they completely forget that was season 4. And then it all goes to pot. And you think, oh, suddenly the one thing that made Blake and his crew completely unique is no longer unique. But for those first 3 years, it's a nice theme all the way through. Servalan is chasing on top of everything else. She wants the Liberator because she wants teleportation technology. Because let's face it, if the Federation had teleportation, everyone else is gone. You know, once you can transport your armies of people through space to some other planet, you've won. You have no rebels. You have no frontier worlds. It's all, you're going to control absolutely everything, which is what she wants.
But this is the first time down and safe is used.
I'm down and safe.
I did wonder that myself, how if the Liberator's the only one with teleportation technology, how do they know so much about it, the Federation? So how did the Federation know that they were out of range of teleport? They specifically said, oh, he's too far out, he won't be able to teleport. How do you know that? How did they know? I thought to myself, how do they know that?
The theory of teleportation is known to various Federation scientists. There's a lot of talk about people working on it and trying to master it and trying to work out how to do it. So it is established as the show goes on that it is something the Federation have a theory about. They just don't have the actual practice. So they know how it would work. They can theorize and say this is how it would work if we had teleportation, which is how they can work out that things are too far away because they think, well, that's how it would work. They just can't actually make it happen themselves. That's one of the great things about Blake 7 all the way through, and it really starts here. Because this is the first episode where we really use the phrase the Federation as the main villains. In the first few episodes, it's the administration, because that's what it is on Earth. It's different from the Federation, the administration. And you get this whole thing, and it starts with this episode with the way that Servalan and Travis work stuff out, that the Federation are not stupid. They are actually a very successful, very intelligent security force. And all the people that are affiliated to the Federation and the administration are smart people. You very rarely, except when it becomes plot essential, which is usually a sign of bad writing, most people who work for the Federation and the administration are intelligent. You know, it's not run by incompetence. It's not done badly at all. And that, again, makes Blake and his crew even better, because they're not fighting a battle against idiots. They're fighting a battle against really sophisticated, clever people who just haven't quite mastered the art of teleportation yet.
We also don't know how much information Callie gave away in her torture. So she could have discussed stuff about teleport and how far away, and because she was tortured for quite a while. She may have given away a lot. And there's a scene where spoiler, sorry, Servalan finally gets on board the Liberator and is talking to Zen, and she says Zen says something to her, and she talks about the fact that he's a difficult machine, and she'd heard he was a difficult machine. Well, who had she heard he's a difficult machine from? So there's little ideas that perhaps Callie gave away a lot more in that time than we would have liked.
I forgot to mention the actor who plays Travis is Stephen Greif. Now, Gary, when was the first time you met Stephen?
In 1978. So he would have filmed Blake 7. Yeah, he would have filmed Blake at that point. He would have done. In fact, it would have gone out. Of course, it would. I would have seen. No, because I didn't see him in that first series at all. So yes, he'd done it by the time I worked with him on Famous 5.
Why? Do you remember? I went to Karen's door.
Is he here then?
No. We saw you through the window. I've come to get you out.
This isn't one of Pocketshop's tricks.
Come on, can you walk?
Yes, I can walk. Of course I can.
Don't worry, we'll soon have you out.
You think so? Kids. Do you think I'm going to let 3 brats and a dog ruin years of planning? Do you? Hey? You hold that dog and I'll shoot him.
Shh, be quiet.
You kids will be sorry for this, I promise you.
Ironically, the same year I worked with Stephen Grive, I worked with Brian Croucher. They both played villains in Famous Five in the same series. He was lovely. I stayed friends with Stephen for very, very, very well, right up to the end, really. We used to have little catchphrases and everything. And he was one of those actors that I'd worked with on Famous Five who I deliberately stayed in touch with because he was such a nice man. And I sought him out, and every available opportunity to talk to him or to go and see him or something, I did. And so, we'd stayed friends for years.
And that episode's available on YouTube. You can actually see it because I watched the episode not that long ago with you and him.
Yes.
Yep.
And you were such a cutie then.
With his fantastic Manchester accent, which is just bizarre because Stephen has a very broad London accent, and he suddenly comes into Famous Five and puts on this quite ridiculous sub-Coronation Street Yorkshire accent, which I said sounded like Minnie Caldwell, who was a character from Coronation Street. And as a result, for the rest of my life, Stephen always called me Minnie. And nobody ever understood it. It was just this little thing between him and me. And I remember I think he was doing his first big finish he did with me. And he kept talking to everyone else and saying, "Oh, Minnie will ask us to do this in a minute." And they were like, "Why is he calling you Minnie?" And I was like, that's far too long a story to go into. But yeah, he was a lovely, lovely, warm man. I loved him very dearly. He was a great bloke and a good laugh. My God, he was a good laugh. Very naughty man. Very naughty man. Could ruin a good take very easily just by sending things up. He was great.
Now, were there any final thoughts on the episode before we wrap up that part of the discussion that we've missed?
I think it's a very important episode for Blake Seven. Beyond the whole fact of introducing FedStat 1 and Servalan and all the stuff about the sort of administration of the Federation and the president and all of this info dump that you get in this episode that is great for that one episode. It sets up the next 4 years of Blake Seven. It's almost like between the way back and Seek, Locate, Destroy, those episodes in between have just been treading water, because this is the first episode since the first one where we get background, where we get detail, where we get a sense of what Blake is really up against and just how big and powerful. And that seeds the next 4 years of Blake Seven, and it all comes from this one ep. I think it's a really important. If you were to turn around someone and say, what are the most important episodes from season 1 of Blake Seven to show someone, you go the way back and Spacefall, and then you could jump straight to Seek, Locate, Destroy, because that just gives you everything you need for the next 4 years. It's a brilliant episode. It's really, really well written.
Wanted us to talk about any Terry Nation tropes that we picked up from this episode. Can I jump on the most obvious one?
Yeah.
The title, Seek, Locate, Destroy. I got that one first. The easy one, of course, being a Daleks chant that is out there. So probably around the same time too in Destiny. That's when they were running around chanting that one, wasn't it? All right. Any others?
I actually think Travis is a bit of a remake of Davros. And so you've got the deformed military leader, you've got part cyborg. So I actually think Travis is kind of a walking Davros. Also ruthless, also clear-minded, also believes he's the hero of the story. So yeah, I think there's a few parallels between those two.
At a stretch, you've got Peter Miles playing a Nida-style character, an assistant to the president. What we also like to discuss about our episodes is, well, we talked about this on the web as well, and what happened to the little decimers. But what do we think happened on the planet Kentaro? What happened next after Blake and Travis had been there and stolen that machine? What do you think, Todd? I know you've got something going through your head, Todd.
They repaired it. They upgraded security. They got a new cipher machine. End of.
That's logical, isn't it?
I think it's far more likely that Travis got really cross with everybody that had
And
let
killed
this
them all.
happen. And suddenly there's an awful lot of new mutoids going around with their minds wiped and sort of stocking up on spaceships. And if someone researches it, they'll find they all originally worked on Kentro, and it's now they're just all mutoids. Because that's the kind of person Travis is.
Yeah.
Because we get the first mention of the mutoids, don't we, this episode?
I think we do.
Yes,
mentions
because
them
they
there.
talk about how Travis wants only a mutoid crew.
Well, how about we score this episode to round it off and marks out of 10? What about you, Chris?
I'm going to give this one a 9. I like,
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll give this one a 9. Yep.
It's way up there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a good one.
Very good.
I'm actually going to give it a 10. I think this is the top
10.
Yeah, I think this is the top tier. So there's 3 or 4 in the entire 4 years that get a 10, and I think this is one of them. It does basically. I mean, there is a few clunky things. Yes, the fight scene with Callie is a bit sort of but that, I mean, I can forgive that because just lack of time in terms of stunt training, doing it live in the studio. If you it probably should have been done on film, so it could be edited better, or maybe not if Lorma was doing it. But aside from that, a few little clunky things like that, I think the episode, the storyline, the way it's structured, the way it moves through the A and B plots, the introduction of new characters, I just think this is just beautiful. I can watch it, and I have watched it 3 times the last day. No matter how many times I watch it, I still love it.
How many multiples past standard, Todd?
Oh, many. I'm definitely going to give this a 10 with an asterisk. Like you said to me, oh, do you ever give full marks? I'm giving it full marks. But obviously, we've left Callie behind and some of those fight sequences are a bit special. But I mean, Doctor Who has the same sort of thing. So, I'm going to give 10s to that. This is by far the best episode so far. And as Gary said, it sets up the rest of the series. So anything in the rest of this series that gets to this standard, I'll be very interested.
Are we going to disagree with any of those scores, Gary, so far?
No way. No, it's my favourite story of the season by a long way. There's nothing that comes close to it for the rest of this season. So this is an 11 out of 10 for me. I think it's bloody brilliant. I think it's a wonderful story.
Well, I'm going to give... it's very difficult. Very difficult. No, I think it's fantastic. I'll give it 10 as well. It's right up there. I was going to go 9, but we'll give it a 10. So, Chris, you're the negative Nancy, aren't you? Giving it a 9.
So the web gets a 10.
I know I didn't give the web. I didn't give a web a 10. I think this one was paced very well, and like you all said, there are a few little things but overall, it's the story for me. I don't really take much. I laugh at a few of the little bad things, but overall, for me, it's just the story, and I think it was paced really well. So, but I'm not going to give it a 10 yet because I haven't seen the whole series yet. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway just in case there's something else.
The next episode is that Mission to Destiny? The next one?
It is. Who Done It Next?
Yes, the Agatha Christie style one, which we're looking forward to talking about too very soon. So that is Seek, Locate, Destroy. I hope you enjoyed our discussion, and thanks to Todd, Chris, and Philip, but especially today for joining us for this episode, Gary Russell. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for asking me. I'm very, very flattered to be here. Thank you.
We'll catch you all next time.
Bye.
See you soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on Blake 7 The Way Back with Todd Bilby, Chris Beer, Dwayne Bunny, and Philip Edney, and special guest Gary Russell. Original theme by Joe Kramer. Other music by Dudley Simpson. This episode, Seek, Locate, Destroy, was released in March 2026. It was recorded on the lands of the Wallumedegal, Wurundjeri, Kalamakalaka, and Durak nations, and also in Wales. Please like and subscribe, leave a review or comment, and send this to your friends. Join us next time with Episode 7, Mission to Destiny.